Today, we'll review how X and XAI might affect Tesla. There's a concern that some Tesla bulls are exploring whether Elon Musk might need to sell more Tesla stock to cover the potential ongoing deficit at X. Bradford Ferguson and Matt Smith of Rebellionaire brought up this question as they pieced together some information about X revenue. But is this something to worry about? Well, we don't think so. Stay tuned for our rebuttal. Second, XAI just released their new second version of Grok, and already it's considered the third best LLM, even matching GPT-4.0. It's the second best in coding and math. So what are the implications of Grok 2 for Tesla, for X, for XAI, and ultimately for AI? I got Larry Goldberg with us today. Larry is a serial entrepreneur, and he's got a lot of knowledge with his software background, talking about X and XAI and the Grok LLMs. Welcome so much, Larry.
Thanks, Herbert. Great to be here.
This is a, this is at this point, this story that we're going to talk about first is a video that Bradford Ferguson and Matt Smith released yesterday. They're talking about, is there a chance that Elon will need to sell more Tesla stock to cover the deficit in revenue that they're seeing and that they've seen that New York Times report on of what X is able to do, because there's a lawsuit against this conglomerate of advertisers who say they're not going to advertise in X. That's since been disbanded. And so we'll get your opinion on it. This is the, their post of this revenue, this video that they did. And they themselves, I watched it, and they themselves said that, they're just bringing it up. We don't know yet if this is real. It's just the possibility of that might happen. So I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit of that, and just so you can set the stage of what's actually there.
A few years ago, Elon sold nearly $40 billion of Tesla shares and sent the stock plummeting in the process. Could we be due for a repeat in the coming months? A few years ago, before Elon actually sold his first share during that series of sales that he made, Bradford, you actually were the first in the Tesla sphere to comment on the fact that Elon must sell these shares on Dave Lee's channel. You made a video with him talking about the options package that he had and how he'd have to sell for tax purposes. So I do think you have some credibility here, given the fact that you essentially called this before.
Yes, and back then the forcing function was taxes. He needed to sell shares to pay taxes from his expiring stock options. So during this video, we're going to walk through why Elon may need to sell more Tesla to bolster up X. We're going to walk through what's going on at X now that caused the situation to escalate and the factors that make a capital raise a little tricky for Elon. Matt, you recently saw something from the New York Times. Could you share that with us?
Yeah, so the New York Times said that they did obtain some documents that showed that in the second quarter of this year, so 2024, X earned $114 million in revenue in the United States, which was a 25% decline from the first quarter and a 53% decline from the previous year. One other quick note is I was actually able to pull up the company's 10Q back from 2022. And back in the latest quarter that they reported on, which was Q1 2022, the U.S. revenue at that time was $671.5 million. So that's about an 83% decrease from essentially the pre-acquisition U.S. revenue.
Okay, I'll pause it there. So that's where they're getting their information from. They took a look at the New York Times article, and that this is the revenue that they're expecting. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, Matt and Brad have a very high level. I have a very high level of respect for that pair. They are extremely well based in financial analysis, and I've often taken their advice, and very seldom has it failed me. In this particular case, I disagree with them for a couple of reasons. The very first reason is that it's quite true. Twitter has seen a very substantial decline in its revenue. It should be said parenthetically that they've also seen a dramatic decline in their costs, very dramatic decline in their costs. But they are losing money. There's no doubt about it. And, all their private investors, myself included, have had to write down their investment in Twitter by quite a substantial amount. However, I don't think what they say is a risk to Tesla stock at all. Firstly, as they say, it's they're really only talking about possibly $1 billion worth of Tesla stock, which, as we know from the volumes that we see on a daily basis, would hardly cause a blip, other than Elon would have to reveal that he's the seller and there's a psychological issue to that. But I don't believe that he'll need to sell the shares for a couple of reasons. The first is his asset base has expanded dramatically since the time he sold shares to buy Twitter. Buying Twitter was a $44 billion event, of which he participated to a very large extent, to about $30 billion, a very large portion of it which was loans. Those people who loaned him the money, they got stuck with some seriously mispriced loans. And I have no doubt that they will have to go along with Elon on any additional money he needs, because they're as much a participant in this business as all of us shareholders. That's the first aspect of it. And by and large, those lenders are very much participants in the rest of his businesses, and they're doing very well out of him. But more importantly than that, his asset base has become much broader than just Tesla. So, for example, SpaceX. His shares in SpaceX at the time that the Twitter acquisition was made was less than half of what it is today. Today, SpaceX is valued well over $200 billion. At that time, it was actually under $100 billion. That's a 2x. And that 2x is $100 billion larger. Now, we know that Elon has more than 40%. We don't know quite how much, maybe 42, maybe 44%, but a very high percentage. And that 44%, which was at that point only worth, quote, $44 billion, only, quote, worth $44 billion, is today worth almost $100 billion. So to state that, you know, he's faced with only having to sell Tesla shares, his investment in SpaceX gives the lie. And I will point out that his shares in SpaceX have got a much larger vote than normal shares, the net result of which is he can afford to sell SpaceX shares more than he can afford to sell Tesla shares. The second facet I'll bring up is that he's now a major shareholder, the major shareholder in XAI. Well, XAI we know to be valued, you know, at a pretty high, a very high number. And so his shares in XAI are worth a lot, as are X's, raising the borrowing capacity of both X and of Elon. So for all these reasons, I think it's a spurious issue. I don't think we have a serious risk of it. And if he does sell shares, it's so little that it would not impact the market pricing, although the news of him selling may impact the sentiment. So for all those reasons, I think it's a nothing burger, as I posted this morning.
You're not the only one. There's a few other prominent Tesla retail community members who have said, yeah, this is not a big deal. But so these guys are bringing it up. It's interesting. It's fun. They're looking at the X revenue. They're going to the revenue. They've even Linda Yaccarino herself said we lost $1 billion because of GARM. GARM is this conglomerate of advertisers who said we should not be advertising with X. They since disbanded that because
I don't think the disbanding relieves them of their legal liability, by the way. I think that disbanding them actually opens the individual members and puts them into some legal jeopardy. So I think Elon is very serious about these things. He doesn't go about these things lightly, and I think he's going to pursue this.
Yeah, Elon filed a lawsuit against this organization called GARM because it's true. These conglomerate of advertisers decided to band together and say, hey, let's all not advertise. X has been affected, but I love the way you said it, right? It's like, okay, it's not a big deal. Even if Elon did sell Tesla, because one of the points these guys brought up was that at the time when he sold Tesla stock, he said, I won't be selling again until probably a year and a half later, which is, by the way, around now, around 2025. And so they go, does that mean he could do it? So here's, Linda Yaccarino saying an open letter to advertisers because of this situation. I'm going to play a little quick clip.
Hey, everybody. I was shocked by the evidence uncovered by the House Judiciary Committee that a group of companies organized a systematic illegal boycott against X. It is just wrong, and that is why we are taking action. Today, we filed an antitrust lawsuit against the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, 4 of its key members, and the World Federation of Advertisers. These organizations targeted our company and you, our users. The evidence and facts are on our side. They conspired to boycott X, which threatens our ability to thrive in the future.
Yeah, they boycotted X.
I just point out that the antitrust lawsuit goes through the organization of GOM to the members. So the members they're not saving themselves any trouble by disbanding. They're probably creating more problems for themselves.
So she wrote a letter, and in her letter, she said this. So the GARM is Global Alliance for Responsible Media. They illegal boycott, as she just said. I thought I saw a list of the names that were part of it, but they're big names like Mars. So here she said, though, cost X billions of dollars. So that's another indicator that they have lost more money in terms of selling than they did in the past.
Yeah.
Okay. Thoughts on some people are saying, well, Elon deserves this because don't you remember that when he was being interviewed and he said, GFU, go F yourself. And then now these guys have banded together. Thoughts on that?
I'm not sure what the legal ramifications of him, telling them to go and F
No,
yourself.
I think the idea was, why is he saying, F yourself to your own customers, which is the advertisers, and then you're mad when they're not advertising, is what some people are saying.
I think, being angry at your advertiser doesn't give them the right to illegally band together in what is clearly, an antitrust issue. So I don't think the little bit of anger or the great degree of anger that Elon expressed is in any way relieves them of their legal liabilities.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. So thank you for giving us your opinion. Obviously, these two thought maybe they just bring it up that is there a possibility that Elon will sell Tesla stock? And you said it doesn't matter even if he does. It's small. He's got other assets now. A number of other Tesla community members said, yeah, I don't think it's anything. Here's Nicholas Gibbs saying, I'm surprised how you both left out context on why Elon said GFU. You also poorly explained the lawsuit. I'm baffled. Context matters. Nuance matters. When you choose to leave it out, you're just as bad as the media.
Okay,
yeah,
that's no surprise.
That's a little bit too far. Okay, so that's that story. But Elon did, X investors will own 25% of XAI. He announced this in November last year. So the value of X is, despite the value fallen since he bought it, that's true. But it's sure looks like it's got a good future. It's going to change the revenue from just advertisement to finance. There's code now that people can see, software code to show that X is about to launch some sort of financial transaction payment system. So they just launched Grok 2.0 and their pace of progress is amazing. So take a look at Grok 1.5, which is a previous version, which they launched 4 months after forming XAI. And it's already in Grok 2, it jumped significantly. If you can look on the left, how much improvement that they have from their previous version. But more importantly, when compared against various benchmarks against the other kinds of LLMs out there, it's done really, really well. The blue is the Groks, the Grok 2 Mini and the Grok 2. And you can see at the far right is number 1. And then if you're further to the left, that means you're not as good as the others. And you can see in some cases, like Math Vista, it's actually number 1 and 2 compared to every other LLM out there. Can you explain this table a little bit more to us?
Yeah, each of these are benchmark tests that have been designed by different organizations, and I can step through them if you wish.
Yes. Yeah.
So the GPQA is sort of graduate level Google proof question and answer benchmark. So there's set questions that you couldn't get the answer from Google. That's the idea of GPQA, and in that Grok 2 is doing second best, which is no surprise to me because they're not trained on Google. They're not principally or solely trained on Google. The MMLU is massive multitask language understanding. So it measures the knowledge acquired during pre-training, the LLM has achieved. And in that test, Grok Grok 2 didn't do as well as it did in some of the other tests. But perhaps the most interesting one of the lot is the math. So math benchmark is really it's kind of a current state of the art math test, and solves challenging math. I want to just jump to Math Vista,
Yeah.
which is interesting because unlike Math Vista actually poses math questions with visual tasks. So it's real world understanding integrated with math. And so it may be a more challenging test and more interesting test than pure math. And in that, both Grok and Grok Mini are at the top of the game. So that's an interesting test because it shows us the extent to which Grok's real world understanding is integrated with its math skills, which are pretty damn good. So that kind of shows you where the true strength of Grok may lie. So when you look at its test in Math Vista and GPQA, you get a sense of the positioning of Grok. I think those are the interesting pieces to be gained from this table.
Nice. Thank you for explaining that. And Grok 2 Mini is what you can access just right on X, Twitter, right? You go there.
I think if you're a subscriber, not a subscriber, you're a paying registered member or something.
Yeah, I think you can access it and play with it. Okay, so this is another organization that came out and said, they got 12,000 community members to vote and say, how does XAI's new Grok 2 that just came out, how does it compare to the others? And it's looking like it's number 3 on the overall leaderboard, matches GPT-4o already. It excels in coding and math, like you said, it's number 2. So they've done tremendously well. Here's kind of how it's kind of like right up there, number 3 already. There's a latest version of Chat GPT-4o, Gemini from Google. So these guys, look how quickly they came and look how quickly they've already caught up. And they're just so early. Elon said, the rate of progress is amazing. This is something you don't, it's just amazing what Elon is able to do because of the team he assembled and the approach. And we'll explain a little bit more of how Grok is different and how he's making it different than the others. And like you've already pointed out, one of them is visual understanding seems to be one of the key things. It's also the most base and uncensored. It's very important that you can have freedom of speech to Elon. And more importantly, he thinks that it's best to train Grok to be truthful, but also kind and funny. So what do you think about that? The creation of Grok to be based, uncensored,
I'll tell you
and
a real
truthful.
life story. I'm a inveterate user of ChatGPT and subscribe, but I've been playing with Grok 2 and I've switched over. Just a few hours ago, I had a problem that I had to resolve. I had to figure out, well, it doesn't matter what the problem was. I had a problem and I decided to go to ChatGPT. And actually, when I thought about it for just 1 second, I thought, you know what? I think Grok's going to do better for me. And it did. So I've actually moved to a point where I think I'm going to drop my ChatGPT license. I think I'm going to move to Grok. I do want to see Right now, I'm using the free Grok Mini, but I do want to test Grok itself before I make that final move. But it's really impressive, and it's up to date. I took the standard test that we've been doing for the last couple of weeks, and that is to ask ChatGPT, has there been an assassination attempt on President Trump? And ChatGPT to this moment just tells you, no, that's not true. If in your context you point to, newspaper articles, you have it read the newspaper article, then it'll apologize and say, yeah, I'm sorry, I was wrong. But that's not so with Grok. Now, it could be Grok was trained later, but I actually did a few tests on some immediate events just in the last 24 hours in relation to like the Ukraine war, in relation to the some events in the political campaigns, and it was right up to date. So right away, anybody who needs an LLM bot support would be advised to go to Grok simply because it's up to date. And ChatGPT has this window that it closes and then doesn't look at beyond that.
So the reason why we're pointing out all the differences between Grok is because it's going to be integrated into Tesla's robots and cars. But because Grok is trained on X, it has the most real-time, most up-to-date information because it's real-time. It's happening immediately.
Yeah, and that was the purpose of my testing. And boy, it certainly proved to be true. I mean, I tested with events that happened less than 6 hours ago, and it was right up to date.
That is amazing. And then so number one, it's real time. Number two, Elon is making it based and truthful. And so that's automatically, that's kind of different, right? So look, I've seen some photos where he goes, show me a photo of a Disney character with a machine gun shooting at, or no, McDonald's, Ronald McDonald shooting with a machine gun shooting at Burger King or something like that. It'll do it, right? So I don't know. Okay, so obviously a lot of LMs are trying to censor it, but Elon is really making sure that it's, as truthful as possible, and he wants to make it as fun as possible. He said the Grok is the most fun AI in the world. This is nothing new, but because we've seen it so many times. But this guy created a video. 2 hitmen walk into a diner. He used Grok. He used Flux, Midjourney, Runway, and language, and 11 Labs voice to voice. And then there's this video. I'll just play a very quick clip of it.
You ever wonder, Roy, what a man's word is worth these days?
Depends on the man, I guess.
See, I always thought a man's word was his bond. That you could trust it, count on it.
We're talking hypotheticals here. Or is there something on your mind, Jimmy?
Let's cut the bullshit, Roy.
All right. So, that's a version, that's a video clip. That's what, it's a minute long. And Elon says, right, it's like first compelling AI 30-minute show will be no later than next year. You can see a 30-minute AI fully generated video, a movie, basically movie length in 2026. That's his prediction. So these are the images generated by Grok, and they're gorgeous. Again, they caught up. This is what you're seeing by the latest other LLMs out there.
Yeah, just to be clear, the video generation is not done by Grok.
Yeah.
Right. They're using a third-party product. They are going to be building their own video generation in a very short future.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about what is the impact of Grok, XAI. Why is XAI important? What does it impact Tesla? How does it impact AI in general?
Well, I have a thesis that LLMs are going to become commodities. Just like databases have become commodities, or even language has become a commodity. And I think the enormous amount of money people are putting into LLMs are going to be, it's going to be too competitive. The people who are really going to make money out of LLMs are, in fact, the Microsofts and the Googles, where they put value add functionality on top of the LLMs, and the LLMs are a core part of their offering. And if you look at Elon's properties, SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, even Boring Company, you're looking at properties that are ideally positioned to take advantage of an integrated LLM that is developed in-house. So you can postulate multiple uses of Grok within Tesla. That's in the car itself, of course, in the humanoid robot Optimus, there's no doubt at all, and of course in the energy functionality that they're developing in their energy equipment. So in all of those, and in the insurance business, so in all of that, you see a huge application for artificial intelligence. Again, the same is true when it comes to SpaceX. So you can postulate the functionality of a LLM, of a large language model, in any of those environments, and more importantly, all of those environments will greatly enrich the underlying language model, or the underlying model. I'm not going to call it a language model anymore because they're going to move far beyond language. So the underlying large model. So the value add of XAI is to support all of these events, all of these businesses across Elon's portfolio, and to be enriched by all of them as it reaches towards general intelligence.
So let's just, think about it, which is so brilliant, right? Elon's ecosystem. So he's got X. We talked about it at the beginning there. Does he have to support it? Is it going to have to grow? And you said, well, it's not that they're losing money, but it's not going to be that big impact to Tesla investors. In fact, it's the opposite, right? Tesla investors, there's an initiative to ask the Tesla the board members to decide whether or not Tesla should invest in X, which
in
again,
XAI
and XAI. Oh, sorry, XAI. Sorry, yeah, XAI. Which makes a ton of sense. We should do that. You and I have done a show on this. We've evaluated that in depth. And then you got XAI with Grok that is so powerful, so important for, like you just said, so many parts of Tesla. So they all work together. And it's just very fortunate, I would say, that we have XAI that's already caught up. And in fact, you brought up that they got real time. It's got better real world imaging. It's got much more truthful, less biased. And it seems to be, headed in the right direction. So we're very fortunate that Tesla has that access.
And here's an aside that you may want to think about. A lot of people have criticized Elon for starting XAI outside of Tesla. But, nobody's criticized Elon for buying X outside Tesla. The reason Elon keeps these enterprises independent of each other is for just this purpose. Tesla's already sufficiently spread. I mean, it's diversified more than sufficiently that you don't want to diversify much further. And you certainly didn't want to buy X. You don't want to buy XAI, but you want to participate in XAI. The same is true of SpaceX. Tesla had no business being in SpaceX, and SpaceX had no business being in Tesla. But they do provide a lot of value add to each other in many respects. Having this ability to transfuse assets across one another's boundaries, at value, is a huge value add, and being able to separate the risks of each of these enterprises is an even more important value add. So I would say that where we are is in an optimal situation.
We are. Thank you so much, Larry. Appreciate your feedback on whether or not Elon has to invest in Tesla, whether or not XAI is the Grok 2, and you just explained a little bit of how much more progress Grok has done, and that we've caught up in so many ways. Thank you, Larry. Follow him on X at TESLA Larry. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.